The next addiction that nobody in Appalachia is ready to talk about is the soil's addiction to chemical fertilizers. Give me 30 seconds to describe the issues that I see, and if it doesn't seem like an issue to you, by all means go find another video. While the overwhelming agricultural product of Appalachia is livestock, that means that the #1 crop that's grown is grass. Modern farmers' profits are eroding into grains, hay, and synthetic fertilizers because the land just can't keep up. The reality is most livestock are continuously grazed on pasture that's too large for too long. This leads to a myriad of issues for the animals, like infections, disease, and parasites. This also leads to issues with the land, since it doesn't have time to regenerate properly, so it doesn't get a chance to actually grow. And since you're loading the cattle up with injections and pharmaceuticals, the nutrition of the cow becomes what's going to keep them alive long enough to get them to the butcher, not what's actually going to create the best quality meat. This philosophy leads hay farmers to plant monocrop fields injected with insecticides and herbicides, not to mention chemical fertilizers, so that way you can grow the cheapest hay with the lowest quality, but it'll keep them alive. Cheap hay supplemented with chemicals doesn't actually meet the animal's nutritional requirements. So we supplement the animal with injections and pharmaceuticals, and since it's easier to just leave them in an open pasture, the fields never grow enough hay to feed the livestock. So what do? Well, you probably buy cheap hay supplemented with chemicals, and the cycle starts all over again. We can talk about how this affects the planetary boundaries framework. Without getting too into it, we have land systems change, freshwater change, and biogeochemical flows. Basically, that means we're wearing out the land. We're messing up our water supplies. And it addresses how synthetic fertilizers harm the soil in the long term. Think of it this way. Since the soil's given synthetic nutrients every year, it never has to develop deep roots in which to store the nutrients for a future time. So nitrogen and carbon don't get stored down in the soil where they should be. That shallow rooting keeps the biogeochemical cycle right here at the surface. It means that you're losing carbon and nitrogen, which is essential for your soil, to runoff, and it's just floating away in the air, instead of it being locked into a stable, living soil. Think about it this way. If somebody DoorDashed you breakfast, lunch, and dinner, without fail, every single day, would you ever bother filling up the pantry? And our activities are contributing to this, mostly in the way that we're managing livestock. While continuous grazing was typically done historically out of necessity because it wasn't easy to change where fences are, nowadays it's mostly done out of either habit or potentially laziness. It increases parasites and sickness in the animals, and it forces farmers to rely on purchased hay with synthetic inputs instead of healthy, diverse pastures that actually meet your livestock's nutritional needs. Monocropped hay fields, frequent mowing, transportation costs, all of this is adding greenhouse gases into the environment. And as I've already said, the chemical inputs and fertilizers are harming the soil long term. Don't get me wrong though, I'm not an environmentalist. At best, I'm a capitalist that cares about nutritional density. So what change can you make to not only increase your profits, but also improve the quality of your meat? Let me briefly tell you about Management Intensive Rotational Grazing. Basically, put your cattle into smaller pastures for shorter amounts of time. If you did nothing but that, it'd be an improvement. As I said before, continuous grazing was historically necessary because you couldn't move fences easily. But with modern electric fences, you can move them pretty much anytime, anywhere you want, as long as you have 2 to 3 inches of soil on top. This means you can separate out your large pastures with 1 or 2 polywires and a single energizer. Moving the cattle frequently is going to regenerate your pastures, and in turn, it's going to produce a lot better quality meat. Plan to move your cattle every 1 to 7 days. While that seems like a lot of work, the animals pick it up really quick. And then don't put them back on the same pasture until the grass has fully regrown, if you can. This should allow the pastures to completely regrow, decreasing the amount of hay that you'll need to buy in supplemental feed, and also breaking the parasite cycle. So you're not going to have to put them on a schedule. You can actually put them on a therapeutic amount of dewormers and parasite control. Obviously, you're going to need to supplement with hay like you already are while your pastures are regenerating for the first 60 days or so after the growing season. The crazy thing about this is some practitioners have seen a 100% increase in capability on a single pasture in 2 years. Here's the crazy thing though. Let me come at you from a point of understanding though. If I was you and I had been raising cattle the same way my entire life, and somebody was telling me this, I'd think that they were a crazy environmental hippie. And some people might think that I am, and that's okay. So let me tell you a quick story about a farmer in Cambodia. There was a program introduced in Cambodia called SRI, System of Rice Intensification. A local farmer, justifiably skeptical of the results, decided that he would just test it in a small piece of land. He planted about a basketball court sized field with the SRI techniques to see if it would be any better. For context, SRI seems pretty counterintuitive, and it goes against basically all traditional knowledge in the area. The seeds were individually planted, they were spaced far apart, and they were maintained differently than traditionally grown rice. The result? More rice per square foot, less water consumption, and all for less seeds used overall. I'm not here to teach you about SRI, but if you're a rice farmer, you should definitely check it out. I'm just here to encourage you to look into something that might go against the norm. It's important to understand why things have been done historically and why there's better ways to do it now. This doesn't just have the chance to increase your profits, but the nutritional density of your meat as well, and the added benefit of reducing the amount of chemicals being put down into the soil. So it has the benefit of being nutritionally and economically beneficial with the accidental benefit of being good for the environment. My name is Jake Hurley. I live in the deep mountains of southwestern Virginia. We use management intensive rotational grazing for all of our animals. Like I said before, not because I'm an environmentalist. I like good tasting meat, but I don't like paying an arm and a leg for it. So we raise all of our meat on pasture, and that's the meat that we eat in our house. If you're interested in learning more about management intensive rotational grazing, check out some of our other videos. If you're skeptical of what I say, please leave me a comment. I'm more than happy to leave you books and resources down in the comments below and recommend people that have done this at effectively any scale. No matter where you're at in Appalachia, from the hills to the hollers or anywhere else in the United States, I'm happy you're here and always be thankful for the process.